Welcome to Work Life by Design. I'm your host, Mel Marsden. If the last few years have taught us anything, it's that change is inevitable and we no longer need to go to work to work. As a workplace dynamic strategist and the founder of Community, I draw back the curtains on my own business, the clients and projects that we deliver, along with tapping into the knowledge and insights from academics, business leaders and champions of change. I believe that our environments have the power to positively influence our behaviour and performance, inspiring our human potential. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Work Life by Design. Now, we are about a month into the year of 2023, and I'm hoping that this year is going to be the year that I am living a life in flow. Now, the reason I want to share this with you is because I think at the start of every year, we have this opportunity or we have this feeling that we should be all checking in and setting New Year's goals and New Year's resolutions. And while I think it's a great time of year to do that, and I'll explain why in a few ways, it's also something that you can do any time of the year. Now, I find this really helpful at the beginning of the year for me because it's an opportunity for me to really check back in with me, where I'm at, how I'm feeling, what's working, what's not. And the reason that this is a really great time for me is because this is probably the only time of the year that I really get a great break away from my business. And the reason being is because in the industry that I am in construction, the whole construction industry shuts down, which is fabulous because there is no possibility of the phone ringing or emails getting sent and, needing to be available because everybody is having that same break at the same time that you are. So even if I take holidays during the course of the year, I'm kind of still available because other people are still around and things are happening. So this is the time of year that I get to completely disconnect and totally recharge and rejuvenate. And I get to come back feeling completely energized because I've had that opportunity to fully remove myself from the business. And so when I get this opportunity, I have a clear mind. I have had that opportunity to recenter with myself. And it gives me that opportunity to look at that realignment is, what's working for me? What's not? Where do I actually want to be? What have I been saying yes to that I should be saying no to? What's happened in the year just gone that probably isn't where I'd like to be? And I can start to look at it. This isn't necessary to do at the start of the year. It can be done anytime. This is just what works for me. So I think it's really important for you to find your own time of year to have a look at. And, don't feel rushed to have to do it on the 1st of January. It's kind of take your time to feel into it. So in today's episode, I just want to share with you my process for this and also why I'm not hustling and I'm not striving and I'm really not going to be pushing myself to my limits this year. But before we jump into today's episode, I want to share with you a very, very exciting announcement. My book is just about to go to print. So the next workplace, Designing Dynamic Environments that Inspire Human Potential, is done. And we are hitting print on that any day now. So you're going to be able to pre-order that one. I'm going to publish a link to that in the show notes, but I'm also going to be celebrating its release with a book tour. So we will be going to Brisbane, we'll be in Sydney, and we'll be in Melbourne. And this is going to be an opportunity to sort of showcase the book, but I don't want it to be just about me and just about my book. I want it to be about starting a conversation. And I think this is a really incredible time that we are living in at the moment. We have immense opportunity to really look at what's working in our workplaces, what's not, and learn from others who are, blazing a trail and trying something new and really experimenting with what they can do around the 4-day work week, around flexibility and hybrid work. And there's many, many other things that we can start to look at as well around how we are enabling and supporting that employee experience for our people. So it's going to be a very interesting evening. Every state has got a slightly different format. We're going to be having panel discussions. We've got guests coming in to join the conversation. And I'd love for you to come and join the conversation too. So if this is something that inspires you, is to look at how we can inspire that human potential within our organizations, please do come and join us. Again, I'll drop the link in the show notes so that you can find a venue and a location that works for you. Come along, join that conversation. And I'd love to clink a glass of champagne with you and celebrate the launch of my book. It's pretty exciting for me, and I'd love you to come and celebrate that with me. So back to today's episode, and, this is going to be a really big year for me. Launching the book is a massive deal for me. This has been 4 years in the making. It's been my entire career, my ideas, my philosophy, my thoughts on workplace and what makes a great workplace and enables us to create really thriving and dynamic workplaces has all gone into this book. And so launching that out into the world this year is going to take up a massive chunk of my time, one that I'm very happy to give, but it's also something that I want to give my wholehearted attention to and not be distracted by other bright, shiny things, which I know that I can be. So I'm putting as much effort as I possibly can into that this year. And, when I sit down and I reflect on where my energy went last year and what I was sucked into is, I had a massive year last year. We welcomed the birth of my son, Nash. We had 5 projects that I delivered in the back half of the year with Nash. And I also had 2 more projects that were still under development and working my way through those. So it was a big year. And so this year, I really want to kind of really focus back in on what's going to be important to me and what's going to be important to making sure that both myself, my business, and my family are thriving. And it's a big year for my family as well because my little baby Nash started daycare. My bigger baby Bailey, she started kindy this year. And my biggest and eldest daughter, Malika, started high school. So it's a year of milestones and we've got a lot to accomplish this year and they're going to have each of their own little special challenges that come with that. So I want to be available to give them that time and attention. When I look back and look at what my word for last year was, my word was spacious. And I chose that word because it was all about creating a space where I felt expansive. I didn't want to feel compressed. I didn't want to feel under pressure. I didn't want to feel overwhelmed. Now, that's not always a reality that we can live in. I can certainly tell you that didn't always happen. My life didn't always feel spacious. But what it did do was it provided me with an anchor that when I did start to feel that overwhelm creeping in or things were going to get out of control, it was an opportunity for me to come back and go, okay, well, what is within my power to change? What can I do differently? And, having that word as that anchor, it gave me that almost the permission to change things. And so it led to me pushing out the book deadline. So instead of launching the book in September, here we are, we're launching it now in March. It delayed the restart of this podcast. So you may have noticed that I disappeared for 6 months and we didn't release any new episodes. And that was while I was sort of juggling Nash and the business and keeping everything else there afloat. I hit pause on the work-life lounge because I wanted to create more space for the other things that I need to be doing in my business and in my life. And it also meant graciously declining any of those unaligned project invitations. Sometimes there's a project that comes up that just doesn't fit within my wheelhouse. And it's having the empowered and the boundaries to be able to say, look, thank you for the opportunity, but that isn't for me. And so this year, it's really going to be for me almost what I'm calling a further softening into this intention of really pulling myself back and staying close to my core rather than stretching myself to all of my limits and trying to do all of the things because you end up breaking and you get really thin. So I'm coming back and I'm staying true to myself this year. And I came to this realization by sitting down and working myself through my Live a Life by Design program. And I really enjoy coming back and checking in with myself on where things are at. And like I said, at the beginning of the year works well for me, but it's an opportunity for me to see where things are out of balance in my life. And I even went and I redid my values exercise this year. And it's not something I do every year, but this year I thought, I just want to see how things are actually still stacking up for me. And whilst my words are still very, very similar, there is a different level of focus and priority that I'm putting on different areas. So, things have slightly shifted for me in that area. And every year I pick a word that I think embodies my whole feeling of what it is that I want to achieve for the year. And I want that word to be that anchor, just like spaciousness was for me last year. And for this year, my word is flow. And this word came incredibly easy to me this year. So typically this word can take me a couple of days, if not weeks, to actually get the right word. I want it to have the right meaning behind it. And it's got to be the right meaning for me, not just what the dictionary means it to be, but also what that word invokes in me. What is that feeling that comes when I use that word? And so I was incredibly surprised this year when it was just completely obvious. There was no debate. There was no reconsideration for that word to be anything other than flow. It was totally obvious for me. And I really feel that this word is actually a culmination of a few years for me. It's really come to the surface and it's something that I have been working towards. And so I'm treating this year as a bit of an experiment because I've been learning and leaning into living in flow for a number of years now. And there really are a number of layers to it. And so I want to share with you what those layers are that have kind of got me to this point and how I'm going to be experimenting with that word this year and what I'm hoping the impact's going to be. When we think of flow, the first thing that comes to mind for me is about the concept of working and living in flow. So time passes easily. We're working in our zone of genius. Everything's easy. Everything's effortless. You may have heard the book Flow by Csikszentmihalyi. And what he describes flow is when we're happiest is when we're in control of our inner thoughts and feelings. When we're experiencing a flow state, this is really a sense of enjoyment, purpose, and meaning. And so for me, what I take away from that is that this is really about doing more of what I love and what I enjoy and what lights me up. And, if you want to take a bit of that sort of woo-woo aspect to it, it's really around attraction theory and abundance. And when you're in that state and you're in that vibration, what happens is that your energetic frequency is changing and you start to attract more of what you want. And part of that could be, down to our RAS system, our reticular activating system, which, when we start to focus on what we want, we start to see more of it because we become aware of it. It's why we see red cars when we decide that we want to buy a red car. We see them everywhere. And it's because what we're doing is we're drawing our mind's attention to the things that we want and the things that we want more of. And so in my view, that's kind of what the flow state's all about. It's about how can we create a space that we feel joyous, we feel happy, we feel like we're in flow so that we experience more of that. So that's kind of what I've been experimenting with. And that's the feeling that I really want to get is, how can I live in this flow state? I'm interrupting this episode with a very special announcement. I'm so excited to tell you that my book, The Next Workplace, Designing Dynamic Environments That Inspire Human Potential, is now available for pre-order. This book has been in the making for a few years now and brings together all of my knowledge, research and insights on what it takes to design a dynamic workplace. As organisations are navigating a new frontier, struggling to figure out what's next in today's hybrid and distributed world, how can we leverage one of our greatest assets, our workplace? The Next Workplace will show you how to leverage your workplace to attract and retain talent, increase employee engagement and elevate employee experience. Plus, deliver bottom line returns on your investment. And to celebrate its release, I'm inviting you to join me for an evening of storytelling as I engage industry leaders in a conversation on the design of work and place, exploring the opportunities for our environment to inspire our human potential. These conversations are going to be happening in Brisbane on March the 22nd, in Melbourne on March 29th, and in Sydney on April 5th. And I would love for you to come and join me. So to grab your copy of the book and reserve your seat at the book launch, head over to my website, melissamarsden.com.au/book. Now, other things that I think fall into this is really about leaning into your own unique personality traits. I've talked about this before. We've got our love languages. You've got your 16 personalities. You've got your disc profiling. It's really about accepting, acknowledging, and embracing who you uniquely are. Do you like being in crowds? Do you not? Are you introverted? Are you extroverted? What comes naturally and easy to you rather than trying to be all the things, focusing in on your strengths and not necessarily trying to improve on your weaknesses, being aware of them, but really focusing in and honing in on what is your strengths. Now, one of those other aspects of personality profiling that I haven't spoken about previously is around human design. Now, human design, you might think as a designer, I'm talking about like human ergonomic design. I'm actually not. I'm talking about the combination of analyzing your astrological birth chart and your chakras. And when we do this, it actually gives us a personal energetic blueprint. And that energetic blueprint helps you understand, what comes naturally and easily and effortless to you. And when you're starting to live out of alignment, how that shows up. So there are 5 energy types within human design, and they are generator, manifesting generator, manifestor, reflector, and projector. Now, I am a projector. And I found this extremely fascinating when I first heard about it because it helped to start to explain a few of my personal tendencies and my personal preferences and also the way that things show up for me. So Within human design, you've got some key attributes. And the first one is around your strategy. And as a projector, it's about waiting for an invitation. So, my strategy here in life is to put as much information out there, to showcase what I do, to share my insights, and then wait for the invitation. The next part of those key attributes is around what your signature is. And for me, my signature is success. So I need to feel like I'm successful. And when I feel that I'm successful, that is that signature that I'm living in alignment with my own energetic blueprint. And the last key attribute that they have is around what they call your not self. It's like when you feel like you're living out of alignment, how that shows up for you. And for me, that's bitterness. So when I feel like pissed off or like things aren't going the way that they should be, and I'm starting to feel resentful, that is an indicator to me that I'm actually trying to expand beyond my boundaries of where I should be. And I'm living out of alignment. I'm in my not self category. So these things actually made so much sense to me because I am someone who's highly driven. I love the feeling of being successful. I do get resentful when things aren't quite working out the way that I want them to be. And I now have this other sort of language that I can start to lean into and understand, what it is that is about me that's unique and why I do the way that I do it. And what I've learned about this is that as a projector, given this is all about energy, I don't generate my own energy. So, a bit like introverts, we absorb energy from those around us. We derive that energy from the people that we are around. Now, that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. So, it could be that I get energized and vibrant and lit up and I can bounce off a room by the people that are in it. But it also can mean that I take on the energy of others and it can be negative, it can be draining, and it can be sometimes really quite overwhelming. And, like introverts kind of need to retreat and regroup. So there's a few things that started to make a lot of sense for me. And what this has meant is that I've really started to see the world really differently. And as a projector, that is one of our unique traits is that we see things differently. We are a guide. We have a different vision of the world and we want to see the world as a better place. And so it's about sharing that vision and then waiting for the invitation for others to invite you in to share your insights and to share that knowledge. And also, part of my unique blueprint strategy is to relax and enjoy. Now, that is something that is very unique to me. So I'm working on that. But that has been another really big insight to me. And I've only sort of discovered human design in the last few years. And so I'm really trying to lean into that one now and just see how much of it is woo woo and how much of it actually can influence, the way that my life kind of rolls out. And the last thing that I think is really starting to influence how I'm going to be living my life in flow this year is just the awareness that life is actually cyclical. And when I say that, it's everything is repetitive and it's repetitive patterns. So there's 4 seasons in the year and the earth moves through those every year, exactly the same. Summer, autumn, winter, spring, and repeat. Each of those seasons brings with it different things. We've got heat, we've got cold, we've got, the leaves are falling, the flowers are blooming, the babies are being born. Everything starts to work in this cyclical pattern. The moon, again, moves through those 4 phases and it's on this 29-day cycle. And it's the same thing over and over and over again. And then as females, we have our menstrual cycles and they're 28 days. And again, they move through these 4 phases as we progress through the course of the month. And so over the past few years, I've been paying a lot more attention to this. And what I've realized is just how connected we are as humans to these cyclical natures that occur both around us, but also within us. And so I really want to start connecting into this and really start experimenting to see what happens when I'm present and aware of what that cyclical nature looks like and what's happening around me. It means that in the seasons, I'm looking at what the food is that I'm eating, what's in season, what's available and what should be available. I know most of the foods we can get these days are always available, but how do I be a bit more conscious about stone fruits in summer and more root and hearty vegetables in winter? What is that going to do for me? Looking at the phases of the moon and, the impact on me and my energy and those around me. And again, this might be all a little bit woo-woo, but it's all fairly harmless. So let's try it and see what happens. But I'm also tuning in a lot more to my own cycle and, how my energy ebbs and flows throughout the month, what my mental clarity looks like, how my energy shifts, what my physical body feels like. Do I want to exercise? Do I want to lay on the couch? What's my appetite like? And, I really just want to pay more attention to how I'm feeling and looking at that over the course of the month and how that shifts. And it's really about embracing what's going on around me and within me and working with it rather than working against it. Because I think we've got this culture of hustling and pushing and striving. And, we can't always be on. We aren't machines, but we have this tendency to do that. And so this way is my way of kind of unplugging from that cultural expectation and looking at a bit more of an ancient wisdom around, how we lived and worked in the past and how can I really embrace that and integrate that far more into my life. Now, a few episodes back, I've spoken about some books that I've been reading and have all sort of influenced and led to this thinking. And one of them is called Do Less by Kate Northrup. And what she talks about in here is really about harnessing the energy that you've got in those key phases of the month and then rejuvenating in others. So rather than trying to push through and be energetic and things in a time where you should be really kind of retreating and rejuvenating, is working with that. And that's about that not being designed to be on all the time. Another great book that I read a few years ago is called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And what he talks about here is, only doing what is essential. How many times do we go above and beyond? How much time do we do things that we don't really need to be doing? And what is that doing to our mental energy and our physical load that we are carrying? And then he's done a second book, which is the follow-up, which is called Effortless. And it's all about how do we make the essential easy? How do we make it effortless? And so he's got some great tips in there that help you start to be really focused and really consistent about only doing what is essential, and then how do you make that essential easy? And the other thing that I've learned about too is the chronotypes. So you've got the lark, the middle bird, and the owl. And our chronotypes is like our biological rhythm. Are we early risers? Are we night owls? I'm an owl, and which means that my peak energy is in that late afternoon. So all of these things are really starting to inform how I design my days, how I design my weeks, and how I design my months. It's all data. And I love data because data is science and there is strategy in science, and I can actually work with that. So I'm using all of this to start to plan out what my optimal times are and when I should be networking and when I should be booking in my massages and my facials and my acupuncture appointments and when I should be out there doing speaking engagements or producing new content or, really getting focused and analyzing data. I'm trying to map my work life in line with that so that it really feels easy. I want it to feel effortless. I want my life this year to be in flow. And, I've even taken it to the extent of, mapping out when the book launch and the book tours should happen and making sure that that's going to be when I'm on my peak game with my peak performance and my high energy levels so that I'm really working with what is naturally coming to me. So it's all a big experiment, but one that's really got no downside. The only potential that I've got here is massive expansion. So here's me living a life in flow for 2023. And to help me with that, I'm going to leave you with one last thought. And this is going to be my little mantra for the year. And it's what if it were easy? And what I'm going to use that for is every time things start to get hard, every time things start to feel overwhelming, like I've got a massive to-do list and I can't get through it all, asking myself that question, what if it were easy? What would I change? What would I do differently? And I encourage you to do the same thing because sometimes we take on a lot of things and sometimes we get really overwhelmed with everything that we've got to get done. And sometimes there is an easier way. So I'm going to leave you with that one. Thank you for joining me again today. And I do hope to see you at the book launch. They are going to be in Brisbane on March the 22nd. We're going to be in Melbourne on March the 29th. And in Sydney on April the 5th. But all of those dates and information is in the show notes. Come along. I'd love to see you there and celebrate the launch of my book. I'll see you soon. Bye.